working week of Children's Mental Health Awareness Week, which in my world is one of the most important weeks because our mission at the Youth Project is to educate, empower, and support families and communities around the very important topic of children's mental health. Not only because we want to change the conversation, but because we want to empower people to help their children, to get the help they need to help their children, and because we believe that everyone has mental health. I think certainly now during this current crisis, the mental health conversation has changed and continues to change as everyone in the world becomes very present to the fact that our children really need care when it comes to their mental health. So we are very excited to have this week to celebrate.
Randy, may I say a word while you figure out the text?
Please. Oh my
Please?
gosh, please do.
Sure.
Go
Hi,
ahead.
everyone. I am Laurie Braun. I will be the leader of this meditation time today. I'm so grateful that you've joined us. We thought about titles for this session, and we called it a spiritual check-in, meditation moment. And in our description, we said, take time to take a deep breath. And I think that while we are all sort of captive in our homes right now, you would think it would be easy to take a deep breath, but in some ways it seems much harder because our homes are not just a refuge away from everything else now. They are everything else. So it's our work and our children and our families and our eating time and our stress time and our family meeting time, and everything is all in one place. So all the more so is it important for us to really take time to take a breath and to take care of ourselves.
I want to welcome all of our current attendees. My name is Randy Silverman. I'm with the Youth Mental Health Project, and we are so lucky to have with us today Dr. Laurie Braun. She is a parent, a rabbi, and a youth mental health advocate. She's based in New York and Pennsylvania, and she has provided spiritual guidance and mental health advocacy for families and youth since her very first professional role serving on a religious and cultural support team at a residential treatment facility in California. So she's gone on to serve communities, and now we are very excited she is joining our team at the Youth Mental Health Project as our new Director of Outreach. We're very excited to have her here for Mindfulness Monday. I am going to now pass it over to Laurie. I just want to say one more thing. I woke up this morning feeling really anxious. Had a little mini panic attack. My chest was tightening, and I just thinking about all the things that I need to do, and feeling very kind of claustrophobic, as many of us are feeling. My husband's business isn't doing well. There's a lot going on at the Youth Mental Health Project, and our finances aren't what they used to be, which is just a little plug for donations. I'm going to put a place for anyone who wants to donate in the chat box also. Anyway, and my husband turned to me and said, "But Randy, it's Mindfulness Monday." And I said, "You're right, it's Mindfulness Monday." So I have been waiting all morning for this wonderful moment to breathe. So with that, Laurie, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to put myself on mute, and I'm going to change it to view where everyone can look at Laurie instead of me. Thank you so much, Laurie. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Randy. I'm very grateful to be here, both because I love the Youth Mental Health Project and because I needed a meditation moment myself. And I find I am more likely to schedule those moments if there are other people joining me. So I wanted to begin just with a few guidelines. I know for some of you, this may be a practice you have in your lives to meditate regularly. And for some of you, this might be a very first tipping of your toe into the pool. So I want to make room for all of you and all of your experiences and welcome everyone. I want to say I was not always a meditator. I still will say I'm on and off in my practice. And I just wanted to share a moment of show and tell. I bought myself a pillow to help remind me to meditate more. And here it is. Is it coming across forward or backward? Can you read it? Great. So it says breathe. And it's kind of a miracle to me, this pillow, because when I walk into my study and I see this pillow propped on my little favorite chair, I do this. I take a moment and I breathe. And it is really amazing, considering we need to breathe to survive, how little we attend to that need and how little we focus on it. And with all the stressors in our lives regularly, and then all the additional stressors that are added in this insane time of worldwide pandemic, there is so little we can control, and yet there is always one thing we can control. And that is, we can take a look inwardly and we can take a deep breath. And so it's the simplest of things. And it's amazing to me that however many classes I took or degrees I was interested in, I constantly forget that if we just go back to the breath, we are centered again. So as our very first moment of participating in meditation together, I want us to engage in that simple act of bringing consciousness to the breath and taking a deep breath with the purpose of cleansing your body. So people do this differently. I typically breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth. And I will say, whatever way is comfortable for you to take a deep breath, please do that. Open eyes, close eyes, whatever feels right, and take a moment to breathe. And just take a few more deep cleansing breaths and feel the difference between your breathing when you first entered the call. And we're trying to make sure we all have our sound and our Facebook Live and all the things happening, and the experience of breathing to live versus breathing to breathe. So with that experience of deep breathing, I want to ask, we're going to do a lot more of that throughout the hour, but before we enter a deeper meditation period, I do want to ask everyone, if you're comfortable, to take stock of what is happening in your life right now. Not over the last month, but today. What is happening in your life today? What is your state of mind today? What state of mind did you come into the call with? And if you had to summarize your state of being right now in one word, what would that one word be as we enter the call? So I'm going to take a moment to think about that. It doesn't have to be magical. My husband calls this a blink moment. What comes to mind about how you were feeling this morning, let's say? And we should just start to see a series of words. These are good ones. Stressed, uncomfortable, frazzled. I'll add some more words that were happening in my household. Anxious, unprepared, lacking space. All those things were happening in my home. There we go. More disorganized, frazzled. And I just want to ask people to open their chat. If you're not familiar with the chat box, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see spaces that say participants, Q&A, share screen, chat. And if you click on chat, it will allow you to write your word. And you want to click on, it gives you multiple options. You want to click on everyone so that everyone can see your word. Great. So I see more coming in. Uneasy, distracted, uncertain, not present, and calm. So I am envious of the calm because I'm not quite there yet. But I think even the intention of coming into a space of quiet does bring that feeling of, we might not be there yet, but there is an openness to receive that calmness, that comfort, that quiet, and that community. Beautiful. I see some more words coming in. Stressed, frustrated, angry. And I just want to honor that many of us on this call have children in our lives who have mental health. All of us have mental health and all of us have mental health needs, but many of us have children or family members who require more support to achieve their mental health needs. And that is in the best of times. And here we are as a community and as families and as a world, really in the worst of times, really in a terrifying, unprecedented time, certainly a time that none of us in our lifetimes have lived through. And I know every day as I wake up to this, I think, how is this possible today in 2020 that this is where we are? Didn't we solve the problems of the plagues? So I will add to that list trauma, depression, anxiety, disbelief. It's a shocking time we're living through. And so for many of us on this call, we have an enormous number of demands on our plate at the best of times. And here we are in the worst of times. So Randy and I came together and asked the question, how do we help support families who have hard lives in the best of times and harder lives now? And the answer, of course, is community and support. And giving the gift of time of care for the caregiver, which I know is very hard to carve out. So I'm going to stop talking and I am going to direct us from all those words of anxiety and honor that they're here, they're with us, we are going through hardship, and breathe into that. And part of meditation is breathing into what is. It is not denying, it is not trying to reach perfection or nirvana or silence. It, in fact, is learning to live with what is. So to me, meditation is simply getting quiet. And I like that phrase better because meditation as a word, it's kind of why I don't always tell people that I'm a rabbi. It has lots of connotations and baggage, and people bring their baggage to it. And, oh, I don't meditate. I don't know how to do that. That's not me. But getting quiet and breathing, we all can do. And sometimes, in fact, I would argue now, every day, multiple times a day, we need to make time for ourselves to get quiet. For me, that has been shutting myself in the bathroom and getting quiet because there is no other space in my house where I have a door that I can count on. So I want to say whatever it is that you need to do to get quiet, give yourself that gift. And I'm going to make one more offering before we enter into silence. And that is a poem that was in my favorite magazine, the New York Times Magazine, Sunday edition, before this coronavirus outbreak. And I reread it this morning because it had such meaning to me. And it has even deeper meaning now that we all enter into this communal pain together. So it's called Small Kindnesses. And the author, I hope I'm pronouncing their name correctly, Danusha Lamaris. Small kindnesses. And I invite you, if it is comfortable, to close your eyes, put your feet on the floor. And I should mention wherever you are sitting is fine. If you are sitting in a chair, on the floor, whatever is comfortable. And I just encourage you, wherever you are, to uncross any part of your body that might be crossed. So if you're sitting like this, give yourself permission to uncross your hands. If you are sitting with your legs crossed, give yourself permission to uncross them and connect with the floor. If you are accustomed to meditating and crossing your legs is most comfortable for you, give yourself that gift too. I like to ask people to uncross because there's something about the openness, opening our bodies, that sometimes allows us to take things in differently. Take a deep breath and take in these words. Small kindnesses. I've been thinking about the way when you walk down a crowded aisle, people pull in their legs to let you by, or how strangers still say bless you when someone sneezes, a leftover from the bubonic plague. Don't die, we are saying. And sometimes when you spill lemons from your grocery bag, someone else will help you pick them up. Mostly, we don't want to harm each other. We want to be handed our cup of coffee hot and to say thank you to the person handing it, to smile at them and for them to smile back. For the waitress to call us honey when she sets down the bowl of chowder, and for the driver in the red pickup truck to let us pass. We have so little of each other now, so far from tribe and fire, only these brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwelling of the holy, these fleeting temples we make together when we say, "Here, have my seat. Go ahead, you first. I like your hat." Take another deep breath, cleansing breath. And we'll head from that poem into several minutes of silence where we'll focus only on the breath. And when your thoughts wander, which they will do, I invite you to just come back to the breath. So it may look like this. Deep breath. Am I breathing right? Deep breath. Did she say go through your nose or your mouth? Deep breath. My kid is being noisy and I know I'm going to have to get off this call early. Deep breath. I shouldn't have signed up. This wasn't a good day for me. And each time those thoughts come into your head, you go straight back to the breath and you acknowledge them. Oh, there is that thought. There is my worry. Goodbye. Back to the breath. So it is not denying these feelings and sensations and worries that come in, saying, hello, I remember you. You're the one who's worried that the dog is going to bark and the kid is going to emerge and I'm going to be interrupted and I never get to take care of myself and it makes me so angry and why don't I have a door and everyone else in my family has a door? And all of those things, yes, we honor these thoughts and back to the breath. So I hope that gave a little bit of an inner monologue of what it might feel like to do this. And I see on my clock, it's 1:24. We are going to take 5 minutes, which can feel like an incredibly long time. So I invite you to enter those 5 minutes knowing you may need a break. You may need to get up and get water. You are allowed to excuse yourself to go to the restroom. But come back, we will be meditating for 5 minutes, and then we will unpack what that experience is. And once again, every sensation, the itch on your nose, everything that happens, hello, itch, back to the breath. And I encourage you to close your eyes, find that comfortable position, invite you to uncross anything that is crossed. Get comfortable on the floor, in your chair, standing up, and trust that the floor will support you. The breath will breathe into you. There is nothing you need to do right now but breathe. When your thoughts wander, come back to your breath. If you find your breathing is labored or too fast, take a deep cleansing breath to relax your body and invite yourself to slow down. We'll use the next minute of meditation to focus on the sounds in your space. So as you take your deep breaths, we're now going to focus on hearing and sound. What sounds are you hearing? Listen for a moment and then let them go. Listen for a moment and then back to the breath. Sounds include what you're hearing in your own body, the sound of your own breathing, as well as the sounds going on around you. And for the last minute of our meditation, we will focus on sensations, physical feelings that you are having. Do your fingertips feel cold? Does your torso feel warm? Do you feel your sock against your leg? Anything you're feeling, call your attention to that. If it's helpful to do a body scan and go through in your mind from your head down to your toes, each part of your body and what sensation you're feeling, let that become part of your meditation as well. A focus on physical sensations, all the while coming back to the breath. When you're ready, open your eyes, feel your feet back on the floor, come back to the breath, as well as bring the world around you back in. And we take a moment to come out of that meditation, which was a full 5 minutes long. And as you open your eyes and re-enter the physical space around you, I'm going to ask us once again to check in with a single word or phrase about where you are now. What word or words capture your state of mind, state of being now? And take a moment once again to go to that chat box, click on everyone, and if you're comfortable, share a word. I'm seeing peaceful, relaxed, better, which in the Youth Mental Health Project, we have a sign language for I agree. And that's this, my kids call it brain match. I will say better is a nice word. Present. And keep, as words occur to you, feel free to keep sending them into the chat box. I just want to acknowledge that that was 5 minutes. We did not spend an hour in silence, feeling uncomfortable, worried about, were we sitting right? Were we doing it right? Were we breathing right? We literally just sat with our breath for 5 minutes. Once in a while, I gave us an instruction about something to focus on, which might have been helpful for some people, might have been distracting for others. I wanted to honor that some of us who have never done this before might have needed a little bit of prompt to focus on. But however we did it, it was 5 minutes. And look at the difference from our state of mind at the beginning until now. And I speak this teaching to myself too. They say that all rabbis preach the sermon that they need to hear. That for those of us who often say, I don't have 5 minutes, I don't have a spot, I don't have a door, I don't even have a place to go, my kids need me all the time, I'm lucky if I can get a shower. Yes. And go lock yourself in the bathroom for 5 minutes and breathe, because you can take yourself from that state of anxiety, depression, fear, anger, all of those things we said, to all these words that are coming through now: better, present, calm. And I'll tell you, the truth teller in me was always skeptical about meditation. I am a big believer in tell it as it is. A rabbi friend emailed me, I need words of wisdom for tonight's service. And for some reason it upset me. Words of wisdom, people are dying around us. We've never lived through anything so terrible. Talk about the pain. That's the wisdom, is that we're living in pain and all we can do is support each other. I'm not big on, draping words of wisdom over a situation. I'm big on telling the truth. And the truth is that in the middle of a global pandemic, we just all shifted our frame of mind in a significant way. And research supports this, but we don't need the research to tell us what we just experienced. I bought myself a pillow because I'm not good at telling myself it's time to meditate. But when I walk into the room and I see this, even if it's just 1 minute of saying to my family, I'll be there in a minute, and literally locking myself in the bathroom, where you're in the bathroom, you have sacred space there, I will use that time to breathe. I also want to say I've discovered something new during this pandemic, and this is another question I want to ask you to add to the chat. As hard as it is to take care of ourselves during this time, it is essential. It is life and death. I really believe that. And I want to ask this group the question: what forms of self-care have you discovered, rediscovered, been using, wish you could remember to use to take care of yourself during this pandemic? And the one I'm going to add to the chat for myself right now is taking a bath, which I don't think I had done for 10 years. And in one of those moments when I just needed to shut the door, and my only door is the bathroom, I decided to turn it on. And I have been doing my own made up bathing meditation for the last week or so. And it has made an enormous difference in my life, just like these 5 minutes have. So I'm going to give us a moment to once again go to that chat box and share these ideas.
Do you mind if I share, since I'm the only one who's on video besides you? Is my husband and I are taking nice long walks every day, and it's been great to just notice things like which flowers are blooming, which trees are starting to bloom. We're up in Connecticut, and the spring's later here than I'm used to, and the architecture of the different houses and buildings that we pass. And those have been little moments that I have found are, I'm not an expert in mindfulness, but taking that in that moment of breathing and noticing the little things. So I don't know if that counts, but
perfect. That counts. Everything counts. If breathing counts, the simplest act we have, everything counts. Noticing. It's an act of prayer almost. It's an act of presence. It's
right.
Presence.
I love some of these: cooking healthier meals, exercise, gardening, and taking a drive in a convertible. Kathy, sure, I want to drive in your convertible. I wish I had a convertible. Right? That's awesome. Bike riding.
Reminded me, bike riding.
Yes. This reminds me a little bit of yesterday. We had Gratitude Sunday, and our hashtag theme for Children's Mental Health Awareness Week is giving gratitude, hashtag giving gratitude. And it's similar, isn't it, in some ways? Can you speak to how is gratitude similar to mindfulness versus meditation versus breathing versus being present? Like, it all gets kind of jumbled. Can you speak
Sure.
speak to that?
Great question. I would say they're all related. They're all forms of mindfulness, communal care, self-care, and they're just different forms of doing this, of focusing on, in a meaningful way, checking in with ourselves and others. It's all the same, is what I would say.
It's funny because my cousin Gabby, Gabby, if you're out there, hello, texted me, I think last night over the weekend, what are you doing for self-care? And I texted back, nothing. Because I didn't really even know what the question was. And that's silly. I, of course, understand. I can give everyone else great advice on self-care. It's sometimes doing it yourself that's really hard. But, and then I think I've always been intimidated by meditation. Like you're supposed to know how to meditate. And I've never taken a class on meditation or mindfulness. But I think what I'm learning today is sometimes just breathing or just noticing little things is that considered part of it?
Exactly right. That's exactly right. I felt the same as you. And when I was in crisis with my own family and children, I knew I had to do something to take care of myself or I was going to crack open. And I stumbled upon a mindfulness-based stress reduction class, MSBR, at the JCC, and taught by a lovely teacher named Elaine Redholtz. And it was an 8-week course, about 3 hours at a time, so much longer than 5 minutes of meditation. So a lot of practicing of being quiet. But the reason I prefer the word getting quiet to meditation is because of that kind of intimidating sound. Do I have to learn it? Is there a skill? And after all those 8 weeks, and then I continued, I took 2 more sessions. So 8 plus 8 plus 8. And then she offers refresher courses and graduate courses. Really what it is breathing. And she has remarkable exercises, my favorite exercises, which if we do a follow-up, I might ask people to bring a prop. She has us pass around something to taste. I won't tell you what it is because if we do a follow-up, it'll be a surprise. And she has us focus on that sensation, which is really noticing, as you said. Notice with our eyes, with our senses. You know, I had us do a little bit of that auditory checking in, physical checking in, but something about tasting something and checking
Right.
with everyone around you. There was something really amazing that helped me understand the act of meditation, which again is just checking in and getting
So
quiet.
since I'm hoping there are lots of parents out there listening, I've said this before. My kids are older now. Now all of my children are in their 20s. My 20-year-old just had his birthday, so I no longer have teens in the house. But I'm trying to visualize what it was. Well, when I visualize what it would have been like during this pandemic had my kids been younger, my head kind of explodes a little bit. So I'm thinking if I were a parent, I'd love some tips and tools about how can you help kids who either teenagers who really don't want to listen to you anyway, or younger kids who have a hard time sitting still. Are there any tips or tricks or tools you can share with our parents out there of helping your child learn how to be quiet or meditate without saying, be quiet?
Absolutely. I now have teenagers, 13 and 17. So when my husband and I sat them down at the beginning of this and said, okay, we're going to have a family schedule. And at the end of the day, we're going to do a gratitude check-in. They both said, yeah, right, Mom and Dad, and went to their rooms. So I do not speak as an authority on how to implement this, but I can speak with ideas. I did find when they were younger, it was easier in some ways to implement these practices. And I do remember a CD we bought at the time called, I think it was called How to Sit Like a Frog. And it was a series of, I don't know, 10 to 20 meditations. And you would sit as a family and listen for 10 minutes. And we would make it a rule, you know, after dinner, we're going to do our 10 minutes. And the very first time we did this, I said to my husband, we need more of this in our lives. I don't know if it'll work, but let's try it. We did it. And my son, who must have been 5 at the time, said, Mommy, put in number 7. That is my favorite one. And I said, what are you talking about? We just bought this. And apparently in his school, they had been,
Been
during
doing
diet,
it.
playing these
Wow.
meditations.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It sort of is a little bit for those of you who joined us on our webinar last week on the feelings pillows and how to help your child talk about emotions. Similar to that, in that you have these little pillows that have feelings on them. So I would imagine, I actually like your taste one. If you sat with your kids and gave them little bits of something and like chocolate, and had them concentrate on the taste and the feeling in their mouths and things like that. I also wanted to say, have you heard of an app called 10% Happier?
I have heard of it.
So
And
there's
it's a
a
book
great,
as well, yes?
there's a book called, and I have never met 10% Happier. Just am a fan. So I get nothing from this free promotion, but I'm a big fan of 10% Happier. And I noticed, I'm going to put this in the chat, that they put out a meditation, a bedtime meditation for parents and kids. And I put the link to the article in the chat, and they have some free things going on right now to help people with meditation and mindfulness. But I loved this article about bedtime meditation. So for parents out there, check in the chat box and copy that link that I put in there. I think it's a really well done article. I'm no expert, but I think that they do a really good job. And so for those of you parents out there looking for ways to help your kids become more mindful and present, I think that's another good resource. Yeah, so.
All these tools really serve to calm down our nervous system, which in general, for those of us who have heightened anxiety, we live up here and we need to do those things to calm ourselves down. And I will add, our tent is wide right now. All of us have anxiety. All of us have this trauma that we are living through. So I think all of these exercises, no matter what we call them, deep breathing, taking a walk and noticing, gratitude, they are all serving to calm down our nervous system. And in general, almost to hyper focus on something. In this case, what we did is focus on our breath. In taking a walk, you focus on the flowers. The taste test, you focus on your taste. And what that does is it takes all of this chaos in the world, which we cannot control, and it brings us to this tiny level, this one thing we can control. Well, I might not be able to create a cure for this disease, but I can take a deep breath. And then that helps me help my child take a deep breath, which helps the rest of our family take a deep breath. And I know for many of us on this call, all of us are parents or connected to a child in some way who struggles with this. It's not an option for us to take care of ourselves. And I know that when we were in our deepest crisis,
you said it's not an option for us to take. Oh, right. Okay.
It is not optional.
It's not optional, right?
Correct. So in other words, when my family was in its deepest moment of crisis, when my children were much younger, I felt like I couldn't take care of myself. My husband would say, "Loree, go take a shower." I can't. I have to finish. I truly felt like I couldn't. And it's because I was living up here and in this world of trying to solve the whole wide world's problems. Mm-hmm. And you can't. And so some of this is a letting go and humility and acknowledging I can't live up here. I can't solve it all. I didn't cause the crisis. I can't solve the crisis. But I can come down here to my breath. I can get grounded. I can help those around us. There's a beautiful teaching about a rabbi who says, I'm going to change the world. I have a vision and a mission and a plan. And he sets out to change the world and comes back and says, oh, I can't change the world, but I'm going to change my country. I'm going to do it. I have a plan, a mission. Comes back, okay, I failed. I couldn't do it, but I'm going to change my town. Couldn't do it. I am going to change my family. That I can do. Couldn't do it. I am going to change myself. And
I think that's one of the things we talk about in our support meetings of the Parent Support Network. And for those of you who are listening who aren't familiar, we run virtual meetings that are helping parent-to-parent support groups, and you can find more information about that on our website, which I will put in the chat also. But we talk about being in the moment and learning that the only thing that you can control is yourself. Like I cannot change what happens to me, but I can try to manage how I react to that change. And I think that it's hard to react calmly when we're not calm. And the best way I have found throughout all of the crises that my family's gone through, that trying to remain in that one moment is the best way to stay calm. One breath at a time, one moment at a time, 1 hour at a time. Sometimes, if you get to one day at a time, then that's great. But sometimes all you can do is be one breath at a time. And sometimes that's all the best we can do. I had one mom who said something so fantastic, Stephanie, if you're listening out there, that as her son got older, and her son's, I think now almost 30, and I said, how are things going? And she'd been coming to support group, and, when her child was younger, she said, nothing has changed, but I have changed. I have changed my reaction, and that has made all the difference. Beautiful. And I think it is exactly that, learning to be in the present. And it's hard. It's hard. Like, it seems so easy. Why can't we just all be living in the present? But it's hard. And I think in the end, what you were saying is it takes practice. That's why you have a pillow that says breathe. Put signs all over your house, on the door, on the refrigerator. Breathe. Breathe.
I think I told you, Randy, at one point when I felt so out of control during this crisis, what can I do? What can I do? I started making rainbow signs. You are not alone.
Oh, I love that.
You don't know, around the world, I think it started in Italy, children started putting rainbows in their windows as a symbol of hope, but also I think to help everyone feel like you can do something. There's always something you can do, no matter how helpless you feel. Well, I started drawing rainbows and I couldn't stop. Because it felt like something. And in every window of our house, my children started making fun of me and sort of, putting them on each other's doors. But I have to say, this is meditation. You had asked, Randy, what are other ways we can meditate? We have all those adult coloring books now.
Oh, I love those.
Oh, one of the most meditative things I've done during this time is puzzles.
Puzzles.
When I was feeling so overwhelmed at the beginning of this, I took out a 1,000-piece puzzle that I had started working on years ago and just went through the night working on it. And by the end, I felt calm because I didn't have to fix the world. I just had to find the yellow piece.
Is there anybody out there listening, either on our Zoom or out there on Facebook Live, that would like to share some strategies they have to stay mindful, or that the strategies that you might use with your children to stay mindful? And you can just repeat some of the things we've said. That's completely fine. We just want to get a consensus of what kind of mindful strategies to use for yourself. And we talked about bubble bath and working out and things like that, but it would be really fantastic what kinds of tips do you have for your kids? Oh, I love that. Reading out loud to your children. Puzzles, puzzles are definitely great. I like this whole idea of at dinner, maybe it's on dinner, maybe have a special being in the present moment with dessert. I don't know. I'm all into chocolate right now. I must be craving chocolate, and having kids kind of be very mindful about what they're tasting and what that might be. I don't know. Clearly, I'm in a chocolate place right now. Playing with a new puppy. Oh, Jenny Collins just put playing with a new puppy. That is so true, because you know what? Actually, on Thursday, coming up for Children's Mental Health Awareness Week, it's Pet Therapy Thursday. And so for those of you who don't know, we're asking you to post videos using the hashtag Giving Gratitude. So on Thursday, of your wonderful pets and how they bring you peace and how therapeutic they are. And I agree. I think pets and animals do so much to bring us into the present. Stop, breathe, think, and calm apps. Megan, you're absolutely right. There are some great apps out there. I said 10% Happier. That is actually a paid app, but there are a lot of free apps. There's Calm, Think, Breathe. There are a lot of great free apps for mindfulness. I would bet there are probably some that are directed towards kids and teens. I'm not really sure, but that's some. Headspace. Headspace is also a great app. Carolyn, I know you're out there. I don't know if you've seen anything on Facebook. Carolyn's monitoring our Facebook Live. So hopefully we're getting some great comments on Facebook as well.
I do want to ask Randy, I know for me, one of the things that's so important around this practice, because it is a practice, we're practicing getting quiet. We're practicing noticing things around us. I forget to practice if I don't have other people to do it with. And so when the world was still open, when I could, I would go to the JCC that offered free mindfulness meditation in the morning and in the afternoon, the end of the day. But there is something about having a community to do it with. I am not going to sneak out of my 5 minutes of breathing. I am going to do it with this community of parents. So I am curious if people could check in on the chat. It's a two-part question. One, did you have a meditation practice before today, or was this your first time? And two, if we did this again and made it, let's say, a weekly check-in, even if it was 15 minutes, would you be interested in a more regular weekly, monthly, whatever the group decided, meditation check-in so that you could have a practice community instead of...
That's really interesting. I have to be honest, this was my first. I love this idea. Maybe even in the parent support network meetings, we could find ways to incorporate a small bit of meditation. We do have a gratitude practice as part of our groups that I think, like mindfulness, practicing gratitude can be very helpful in terms of inspiring hope and trying to find positives. It is a great idea. We'll have to monitor some of those chats and the information, but please email us too. I want to put my email address in the chat box, and for those of you on Facebook Live, you can private message us, and we would be happy to talk more about how we can practice mindfulness at home and with our parents, and with our children. Our parents are a whole different issue. So that would be great. I see we're almost at the top of the hour, and I wondered if there's first of all, before we go, I just want to remind everybody that it is Children's Mental Health Awareness Week, and please keep an eye on a lot of the other activities we have going on. I'm going to put in the chat our web page that has our schedule, and at the end I'll share a screen with you, but I'll let Loree have a chance to close us out of this wonderful Mindfulness Monday. And thank you, Loree, so much for everything, for being here and for being such an important part of what we do at the Youth Mental Health Project.
It's my pleasure. And thank you everyone for joining us. I hope whether this was your first time or 100th time, that it was a good moment to check in and to remind yourself of the power of breathing, and that you have more power than you think, even at this very volatile moment. So I'd like to conclude.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
With one of my favorite poems, which is from, depending on your perspective, it's either a song by the Byrds from the 60s, or it's a poem from biblical literature from the book of Ecclesiastes. But I think it has relevance in reminding us that this is one moment in time and we can breathe our way through it, that this is not forever, this is a moment. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for being born and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting the planted, a time for slaying and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up, a time for weeping and a time for laughing, a time for wailing and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones, a time for embracing and a time to refrain from embracing, a time for seeking and a time for losing, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for rending and a time for sowing, a time for silence and a time for speaking, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for war and a time for peace. And I'll add to that, may we all find peace in the current moment, in the cleansing power of a single breath, and in the healing power of human connection.
Loree, thank you so much. I'm going to share now with everybody my screen because this is Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. Tomorrow is Giving Tuesday. And while we want to give everything away that we do for free, at the same time, we are asking for donations because we are struggling, like all other nonprofits, to maintain our presence in terms of our finances. Regardless, we love having you here, and thank you for joining us. Loree, thank you for leading Mindfulness Monday. And we hope to see the rest of you very soon at any of our upcoming. We have tomorrow is Try It Tuesday. We have some fabulous dance instructors to help us dance and sing. Wednesday is Wellness Wednesday with a fantastic Pilates class at 10 o'clock in the morning. Thursday is Pet Therapy Thursday. Please share your pet therapy videos and pictures. And Friday night, we're going to top it off with musical theater magic with a live cabaret from some of the best BFA musical theater students in the country. So thank you so much.
In the middle of it all, we also have a parent-to-parent phone call Thursday at noon. For anyone who wants our traditional parent-to-parent support, join us for that too. The Parent
Support Network National Virtual Meeting, excuse me, that's absolutely right, is having a confidential free parent-to-parent support group at noon. So you can go onto our website at ymhproject.org and look at our calendar under parent support. We do have a meeting calendar, and register for that meeting. It is free, it is confidential, and you will meet other parents just like you who are struggling right now during this crisis. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being part of the Youth Mental Health Project. Loree, we'll talk soon.
Thank you, everyone.